Get ready for atmospheric perspective. Are you guys ready to grab your supplies? All right, at every seat, I'm trying to have a atmospheric perspective Blue Ridge Mountain picture for us to look at as a source. I suggest you looking up the Blue Ridge Mountains on the internet, and let's see what you'll find as you get your supplies. You know what to have. Sorry about my hand there. You need to have your watercolors. I suggest a thick and a thin brush. Your resource. This is what I have for each of you guys on Google Classroom. Your atmospheric perspective, also called 0-point perspective, when the hills get lighter and less distinct as it fades in the distance. Now let's look at, if we look up Blue Ridge Mountains, actual photography of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which the way God created it, if you look in the distance, they get lighter and less distinct in color. All right, for your first step, let's do your pencil drawing. I suggest look this up if you're in my class on Google Classroom, or you could look on the internet, because you want to start with the drawing of some hills. And your first step is to draw out in pencil where you're gonna layer your hills. So if you have a pencil, you're gonna start here, boom, 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 foreground, do your next hill, your next layer, and you slowly go up like that, following a source, depending on which one you're gonna look at, since I'll have these printed for you. And if you're watching this video lesson, just hit pause and then join in when you can, okay? Next, what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna be doing two in the time you guys do one, to make sure you guys at home and following the lesson have enough time, all right? Now you get to decide. I actually did this one with yellows and pinks. You get to decide what color scheme. So that's why I have on my resources one with more purples, one with more blues, and one with more pinks. So you get to decide what shade or tones you want to use with yours. I'm gonna start this little one with blues. And I'm gonna start with dark blue here. And I used dabbing, and I'm using darker blue here, and then I'm going to use some water and blend down so it looks a little more cloudy near the horizon. Now if you're also going to do a sky, you could start up here at the horizon, just do a little bit pigment and then use water, because you don't want the hills to bleed into the sky. So I'm going to leave a little bit of white or unblended area right above at the top, okay? So now I have my darker blue. If you're gonna get some fresh paint, just use the tip of the brush, not the whole thing, and just use the tip, and very lightly you do your trees, and then use some water and blend it down. Okay, now you kind of got to go slow, because the fact is you're gonna get little puddles and you don't want one hill to bleed into the other. So I'm gonna do what I taught you guys, the controlled drip. Drip it around. And if you do drip and it goes off the section you want it to be on, have a tissue ready, because you can dab it up. That way when you're on your lighter ones in the background, your lighter hills, you can still have them see-through and natural looking. All right, so this one I'm doing with blues. Next, what I'm gonna do is grab a lighter blue, or if you're gonna mix blue with green, do a turquoise color. This is where you're gonna get your different shades of color. So that way each mountain, you have a different shade of color. And the darkest color with the most pigment is the one closest to you. And then as you go, remember I got my little bit of light blue and my little bit of green for my next mountain. As you slowly go on each hill to show perspective, I'm now gonna use some water and make it a little bit more hazy and misty as it gets close here. And I don't want to bleed the dark blue into the light blue, so I'm doing circularization. So each hill or mountain should have a little bit lighter hue. So now I'm gonna do the blue and green, but I'm gonna just do it at the top here. And then I'm gonna add a lot more water this time, or white, a little drop of white, and add some white on there. Ooh, that got too light too fast. That's actually, that lightest color there with white, I'm gonna do in my furthest hill. Okay, because atmospheric perspective studies show if you add white and blue to your colors, those are the ones that will go furthest in the distance, is a little color theory trick. Now I'm bleeding my colors together. So in order to stop that bleed going into the sky, I'm gonna rock it sideways and do the control drip, right? And then as it goes down to the side, I'm gonna rock it down so it follows the direction of my hill. Okay, see the way that's rocking? So you kind of want to tip it back and forth and rock it the direction you want it. And then at that point, you don't like the way it looks, dab it up a little bit so you get some of that mist and that haze at the where the trees, or not the trees are there at the top of that first mountain where the hills overlap. Okay, so I'm just gonna use water here, a little bit of that blue and green. Like I said, if you're doing pink and yellow, you could do any color really that you want. As artists, you're picking your colors. Circularization, blending. All right, so now I'm gonna add a little more green, blue. Might add a little drop of purple to it. Now I'm gonna clean my colors when I'm done because I'm adding different colors. That's a little dark, so I'm gonna clean my brush with water. And I'm just gonna get some water, get some more of my blue and green, and I'm going to start a little darker at the tip. Looks kind of like the same shade, so maybe I'll add a little yellow to it to try to make each hill a little bit of a different shade. Now you see how I just added a little bit of color, me getting water. I'm kind of color mixing as I go. And each hill is getting a little bit lighter and a little less distinct as I go in the distance. So with this one I added a little yellow with my green and blue. And I'm going to keep going with that so it's a lighter hue, these next two. Clean my brush with water. Now adding that color right there on that hill and getting a lot lighter. Now you could either add a little bit of white paint to do so, or the color you pick. And remember, if you're getting a little brighter on your further distant hills, add some of that brighter color on the closer ones because they should have the most pigment, the most color on the ones closer. So that way the ones further in the distance look like they're getting lighter in color. Okay, so my last one, I'm going to add a little more yellow and blue. And that further one's going to have a little lighter color than the ones closer. All right, so this one I did with blues, and it's starting to have to rock that back and forth. This next one, should I do with purple or pink, guys? Looking at my source there, I think I'm going to use a little more purple and pink, okay? Because you guys know I like mixing colors. So I'm going to get my colors here so you could see I'm going to pick a little purple and pink, and then I'm going to clean these colors out. If I keep them what they look like mixed in the palette, then I could just get a wet tissue and wipe them out afterwards. Now remember, your hills closer should be darker in color. That's not quite dark enough, so I'm going to add a lot more purple, maybe a little dark blue with that, okay? So you're kind of color mixing right on your page here, and you're getting darker. And to do that tree, you kind of dab it. The idea is if you start with the lightest color and go darker as you get closer, that's a really cool way to do it. But I wanted to show you really quickly how to do this, how your closer hills have the darkest pigment. Okay, and then we're going to slowly, sorry, as I'm dabbing, I'm shaking the camera. Please forgive me. The whole idea is for you guys to join in and be painting during this time. Now what I'm going to do is, while I get the pink out, I'm going to do a really quick wash in the background, back and forth blending, and slowly getting lighter near the horizon line. And so that way I don't have my hills blend in my sky. I'm just going to use a dry brush when I go near the horizon line, not have it soaking wet right there, okay? So I'm going to dry brush, make it light, okay? Now, if I'm working with the shades of pink on this one, I'm going to add light pink with a little bit of light blue, and I'm going to, this time on this one, start with my furthest hill, okay? This is ideal, is to start with your lightest, furthest hill, all right? Then you want to slowly add a little more. I'm going to add some more color, more pigment, and as you get closer, the whole idea is to add more color. And so that each hill, I'm going to add a little bit of orange, looking at my source I gave you guys on this one. Each hill that gets closer has a darker hue, darker color, and that's what's going to be atmospheric perspective. You guys know I'm using water to slowly make it misty and fade it down towards my next strand of hills. Now I'm going back and forth to blend it, okay? Ooh, I went out of the lines. But does it matter if you start with the lighter ones? If you go out of the lines, not as much, because I'm gonna cover that part with a darker color. And so now I'm gonna add red, some red with my orange and my pink, and I'm doing shades of these color. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of purple to match this one. I'm gonna slowly get darker as I come closer. I didn't forget about that one in between, guys. But as you're doing this, you're slowly joining in. I'm adding water. We're doing this together, painting in class. I'm going slow enough, and if not, we will replay this. Don't stress out, guys. As you're doing each one, sometimes you have to skip one, so that way, you can see I'm adding a little more purple to my pink. I'm keeping the pinks right on there, so it gets closer as it comes closer. As it comes closer to you. You guys get to decide which one to do when, as far as your hills go. The whole idea is not to bleed them into one another, so you have to be careful with the tip or with the skinny brush, whatever you prefer to stay in the lines, right? Oops, that one got on there. So here I'm gonna use a little either white pigment, a little bit of white on the tip to make it a little misty as it comes down, or water. Both of them work to make watercolors see-through, and you could do this exact same thing with acrylic paint. Acrylic works with water and white as well to go from dark to light. So you could do atmospheric perspective in either watercolor or acrylic. But in class, we're going to be doing this with, you know, I'm going to get my darkest closer. We're going to be doing this with, as you can see, watercolor, because yesterday we did a trial in media with acrylic. So we're going to see what you're the best at. So that way when you do your final masterpiece based on your photography to avoid art plagiarism, with the unit study of landscapes, you're going to have your best masterpiece. Okay, based on showing dimension in a landscape. Okay, going out of the lines, what do? Dry brush it. Oh, my hand's getting tired of holding this phone. Okay, so I'm going to go over my wet watercolor to dry it up a little bit. I'm gonna dry up, and by doing dry brush and then drying the brush, so there's different ways of doing it. See, I'm using circularization a little bit on my darkest dark, and I have to, if I go darker in that one there, I have to make the one closer even darker in order to make it pop. You could see these guys on my examples even added black in the closest ones, so that way it really makes your art more dimensional if you can make it pop by having what's closer darker and your landscape slowly gets lighter in the distance. All right, I'm getting out of the lines here, so I'm cleaning it up with a dry brush, or you could use a tissue and dab up to lift some of the color up to stay in the lines. All right, now let's get this masterpiece finished together, my friends. All right, I'm adding really quickly, trying to finish. I'm gonna let you guys do this on your own. If you are thinking, Mrs. Smith, you're going too fast, you could get the idea. You're going from dark to light, and I'm still gonna work on those a little more and add different tones and color in. Okay, so I'm gonna keep working here till I get a nice hue by mixing different colors, a nice shade that looks like it's a little lighter than this one, right? This one's darker, that one's a little darker, that one's a little darker. So this is where you could add white, you could add water and lift up some color. As we slowly go in the distance, you're getting lighter and less distinct. And that, my friends, is atmospheric perspective. Okay, I have one more. Let me add a little pink on this guy with a little purple. I didn't even clean my brush. I have some of the pigment still on there from the last one. I'm gonna go right to my nice periwinkle colored water and just give this one a little puddly look. All right, dab it on there. Over and out from the art room. Can't wait to see yours.